Hi everybody, I'm Kenda and welcome to my channel, Kenda's Cabo Closet. My channel is dedicated to helping people find things that they need, and specifically I live in Paradise. I live in Los Cabos, Mexico, but some things are a little bit difficult and challenging to get here. So I started my channel to help people figure out how to get things that they need. And one of the things that I really need is books. I love to read. I normally read 4 to 5 books a month. I really enjoy reading, but it's a challenge here because I don't read in Spanish. So the books that you can get at I think one bookstore that we have here, most of them are in Spanish. So that presents a little bit of a problem for somebody who likes to read quite a bit. So in this video, I'm going to talk to you about my 10 favorite books that I read during 2023. These were the books that I highly recommend. I love them so much, each for different reasons. But the way that I read them was either a combination of the Kindle or an audiobook. And we don't have a ton of space here as well. So getting a bunch of books and selling and having them shipped here and having them, it's just easier to get them on a Kindle or to get them on audiobook. So I highly recommend both of those methods, and each of the books that I'm going to talk to you about today, you can get on an audiobook or on Kindle. So I'm so excited to share them with you. And most of them you can also get in Spanish if you're looking for them in Spanish. So I'm going to put the links to the books down below. I'll probably try to put the links to the audiobook and to the Kindle version, and that way it might make it easier for whichever you happen to have. So first, before we go into my top 10 favorite books of 2023, I would love to ask you to please like and follow my channel. It's just getting off the ground. I'm just getting started, and I really would be so grateful if you would like, share, and subscribe to my channel so that you can be notified when I get more videos that I put out. So anyway, thank you very much for that. I appreciate that so much. So let's start with number 10. We're going to work from 10 down to 1. So let's start with book number 10, Remarkably Bright Creatures, and it's by Shelby Van Pelt. It's kind of a fantastical story that is a little bit hard to believe, but by the end of the book you find yourself kind of buying in and believing the characters, one of whom is an octopus. He's a giant, let's see what kind of octopus. He's a giant Pacific octopus, and he is in an aquarium, and the other character is the woman who does the cleaning in the aquarium, and they form a friendship. And I know it sounds a little crazy, but trust me, by the end of it you're like in love with their relationship, and you're feeling their connection, and you're totally kind of buying it. So I thought it was a really great book, and I highly recommend it. All of these I'm going to highly recommend, but it definitely made my top 10. And when you consider I probably read, I don't even know how many books last year, but to make the top 10, it's a pretty good book. So I thought it was really fun. Number 9 is a book called Counterfeit, and it's by Kirsten Chen, I think. Kirsten Chen. It's such a fun, light story about a woman who is of Chinese descent, and she gets wrapped up in this counterfeiting luxury handbag ring, and how it kind of changes her life. It's kind of like Breaking Bad, but in a book about counterfeit luxury bags. So I thought it was such a fun book, such an easy read. I loved it. The page kept turning, and I just kept really enjoying this book. So if you're looking for a fast read and something that kind of just gives you a good chuckle, I definitely would recommend my number 9 book, Counterfeit. So number 8 is controversial. I've talked to a few people who don't like this book, but I loved it. It's called The Covenant of Water. And The Covenant of Water is by Abraham Verghese, Verghese. And it's an epic, sweeping, multi-generational story of how the differences of people who live on the fringe of society, and in a society that's really segregated and how these lives intertwine. It goes from like 1900 to 1977, and I found it to be a really fascinating and educational book. I learned a lot about the Indian culture. It's set in India, early India, and I learned a lot about the Indian culture, and I found it to be a very fascinating book. Now, the same author, Abraham Varghese, also had my next book on my list, which is called Cutting for Stone. And this one is the one I read first, and I loved it so much, so I went ahead and read The Covenant of Water, also by the same author. Cutting for Stone is a story of these twin boys, also set in India. It starts in India, it ends in New York City, but they're twins and they're orphaned, and how they grow up in this hospital, and the differences with these two twins, but how similar they are, but how different they are. So it follows them their entire lifespan, and wow, I just found it, I couldn't put it down. I just was thinking about these characters, these twin brothers. I was thinking about them all the time. And I felt like it really got in me and in my psyche. And that's how I know it's a good book, when I think about it and I dream about it. So I highly recommend Cutting for Stone. It's a good one. So number 6 on my list is also kind of a fun, it's a whodunit, and it's called Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone. It's a really fun whodunit murder mystery about a family who's reluctant to go on this family reunion up in the mountains, and they end up getting snowed in, and somebody is killed, and the family is trying to put together who is the murderer. So such a fun book, kept you guessing, kept you wondering. The characters were all rich and so believable, and you could basically just picture them. You could just kind of get an idea in your mind of what each of the characters looked like and how you would relate to them. So I thought it was just the cutest book. It also kept me, I didn't want to put it down. I just kept thinking, oh, I know who. Nope, not that person. Oh, I know who. Nope, that person. And then at the end of the book, the narrator or the protagonist goes back through and tells you how he got his hints, and you're like, oh, I totally missed that. You realize that was a good clue and I missed it. And I had so much fun with this book. So it made my list at number 6. I definitely recommend it. I think it was a lot of fun to read. So let's move on to drum roll number 5. So number 5 is a book called All the Light We Cannot See, and that's by Anthony Doerr. That's the story of a blind French girl who her paths cross in a unique way with a German boy, and both of them are basically trying to escape and to survive World War II, basically. And they're on opposite sides, obviously. Their mentalities are different, their perspectives are different, but they intertwine. And there's also a movie that was put out about All the Light You Cannot See, based on the book. So I think it's a great book. It helps you understand and put yourself in the place of somebody who has no sight, and how her other senses are heightened. And the boy character, he has a heightened sense of hearing, and they kind of mesh. So I think you would really like that book. It's not a page turner. It's a little bit more descriptive, but I really, really liked it. So that would be my number 5 recommendation for you. Number 4, people are gonna I don't know what people are gonna say about this, but for me, I loved this book. Okay, so number 4, and that's high up on my list. Number 4 is the book written by Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, called Spare. Okay, I did love Princess Di. I did. I have to admit, I was one of those people who, yes, I was alive when she died. I know it's hard to believe. but I was one of those people who's devastated when she died. I loved her, and I even had my hair cut like her when I was young. I wish I could find a picture, but I had the Princess Di hair. I mean, I was all about Princess Di, and I always loved Harry over William. And so when Harry started kind of going a little, kind of what we were hearing was a little crazy, and doing things that were maybe harmful to the throne or to the crown, I was so confused because I really felt like at his heart he was a good person. So to read his book and get his perspective on some of the stories that I remember very clearly hearing about, where he was portrayed as the villain, and really when he tells his side of the story, you're kind of like, ooh, I see that side, and ooh, was I too quick to believe the hype that was put out by the tabloids in London, and maybe there is another side to the story. So I always loved Harry. I like a rebel. I was always a rebel, and he was a rebel, but after reading this book, I don't know if he was as much of a rebel as I thought he was. I think he was just misunderstood, and a lot of things were portrayed about him being kind of different than what he really is. So I don't know who to believe. You tell me, who do you believe? But you have to read the book first, because I think he makes some very convincing arguments regarding his side of the story, and even with his wife Meghan Markle, and how she has been portrayed in the press, and how she has acted in certain situations, and how she has conducted herself in certain arenas. I think he makes a pretty good argument for why she acted the way she did, and why it was perceived that she was behaving in the way that she did. So I thought it was well written. I listened to the audiobook on this one, and he reads it, Prince Harry reads it, so I got to hear his lovely British accent, his high class way of speaking, and I really enjoyed it. So don't hate me, but I thought it was terrific, and I'm so curious if any of you have read it and what you think about it. So anyway, Spare by Prince Harry. Number 3 is a book called American Dirt. And y'all, get your Kleenexes. This book, I like a book that will change you, right? So this book will change you in that it helps change your perception surrounding immigration, and immigrants coming from, my part of the world, trying to cross into the United States or Canada. This is a story of a woman, and boy, this book starts off like bam, like it hits you hard right in the very first chapter. And this woman has a young son, and I don't want to give away too much because it's so powerful, but through a series of events, she has to leave Mexico, and quickly and quietly, and she has to get her son out because they're going to be killed if she doesn't. And this is a story of how she tries to escape the sicarios, or the killers that are coming after her, with her young son, and tries to still be a good mother, and the stereotypes that she faces, and some of the things that that happened to her and her young son between Acapulco and the U.S. border. So I'm not going to say any more. American Dirt, it's kind of like, it's a take on American Soil, but it's also, I don't know, the dirt. I don't know. You just have to read it. It's so good. Loved it so much. It was for sure my number 3 book for the year. I've read it twice actually, and I highly recommend it and would read it again. So there you go. That's number 3. Number 2 is a book called Lessons in Chemistry. And I love this book so much, and they have made a series on Apple TV about it, also called Lessons in Chemistry. It's about a female character named Elizabeth Zott, And she has the misfortune of being a woman in the 1950s who's very smart. She's actually a chemist, and she tries to be who she is in the 50s. And we actually read this book in my book club last month. I've read it twice now. And just to hear the amazing stories from other women about, their mothers going to work for the first time in the 50s and how everybody stayed at home. And if their mom went to work, it was like, oh my gosh, what is she doing? And the dads were angry, and just like how difficult women had it to try to be professional and strong in the 50s. And that wasn't that long ago, y'all. It was like not that long ago. And we're still struggling in some ways, but I'm not going to get into that commentary. But this book is terrific. Elizabeth Zott is a hero, and she's very relatable. And there are so many different strong female characters, some doing the right thing, some doing the wrong thing. But there are so many strong female characters in this book that you can find somebody to relate to no matter who you are. So I think it was a great read. Everybody in my book club absolutely loved it, and I highly recommend it. It made my number 2, so that's pretty good. And last but certainly not least, drum roll, my favorite book of the year, hands down. There was no discussion, no question in my mind. Even though I loved Lessons in Chemistry and some of these other books, my number 1 book was called Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. Barbara Kingsolver is my favorite author, and up until I read Demon Copperhead, my favorite book of all times is called The Poisonwood Bible, also written by Barbara Kingsolver. So I think she's a remarkable, remarkable author. She's phenomenal in the way that she describes things. But Demon Copperhead, y'all, it's a mind-blowing book, and it's set in like Appalachia, and it kind of is set during the time when like drugs and drug addiction and drug overdoses and opiates were just coming on the scene, and that massive epidemic that hit the Appalachians, that so many people were dying of overdoses and having drug addiction, and they didn't have a lot of resources anyway. And when they were hit with these terrible addiction issues, they just didn't have a lot of choices, and how it affected their children and their grandparents and schools, and all of the ways that this ripple effect of poverty and drug addiction ripple out into the foster system, into the churches, into all of it. It ripples out everywhere, and how in so many ways this young man was failed in his society, but how he still was a strong and resilient character and person who persevered no matter what he was dealt with. And he did it with a great sense of humor. It's not a poor pitiful me, I'm so sad. He does it with irony. He's sarcastic, he's funny, he's cute, he's insightful, he's poignant, he's all of the things that make the best characters. And it is what I love about Barbara Kingsolver. She is chef's kiss. Excellent book. I'm on my 2nd read right now, and I think it will be like the Poisonwood Bible was. It will be one that I will read over and over and over again. So I hope you enjoy it. If you've read any of these books, I would love to hear what you thought. Which one was your favorite? If you read any of these books recently, I would love to chat with you about them. I love books. I love reading books. I love chatting about books. So I would love for sure to hear back from you about my list of the top 10 books that I read in 2023, and now going into 2024 on the take 2 for some of them. Thanks again for watching. Please like and subscribe and share this page if you know of anybody who would enjoy it. And I really appreciate you watching. See you in the next one.